everyone, and welcome to part 2 of our Hellblazer readathon. I'm joined by Bethany, all the way from Texas. How are you doing today?
Doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. This is the long weekend for 4th of July. Did you have a good 4th of July?
Yeah, I worked.
Oh
no! That's okay.
But was there enough fireworks?
Yeah, and honestly, I'm in Texas, so people do it whether it's legal or not. So
Seems like that's the case over here too. Like,
really?
our apartment complex over here, it said like they sent out like no fireworks, none of that. Oh no, it didn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
We were doing all kinds of fireworks and all kinds of stuff. So today we're very excited because we're going to be talking about, last episode we talked about all of Jamie Delano's run, which was the first 40 issues. And today we're going to be talking about 41 to 83, and that's like the Garth Ennis's run, which is supposed to be considered to be the best Hellblazer portion, apparently in its 300 issue saga, which, we're going to determine whether that's a true statement or not. So before we get started, you haven't finished your Delano's run at that time. You didn't start volume 5. Now you have. Yeah. So give us a quick update on what did you overall ended up thinking about Delano. Did the last few issues change your mind?
I mean, I'm not saying he was ever bad. I thought he was pretty decent at what he did to start off the character. I think like you were saying, like Ennis's is considered the best. It's really hard to compare the two, but I did think it was cool that the way they wrapped up in volume 5, where you see like the last end of Delano's run, and then it starts into Garth Ennis, and I think Garth Ennis did a pretty good job of taking over those characters.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was kind of happy that the hippies were gone for good.
Man, when they started out in the beginning of the volume, though, I was like, oh, God.
So those are the hippies from volume 3, which was supposedly universally hated because, when I kind of posted it in different social media platform of ours, everyone is like, yeah, volume 3 is not good. Everyone hates it. Yeah. So those hippies from that volume returned, and then I remember when I saw them, like, oh no!
Honestly, I liked the little girl, but the mom I was meh about. She was kind of weird. She was all over the place. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. It's just a leftover from 70s hippie culture, which if you're not into it, you don't connect to it as much. So we talked about last time that the John Constantine in Delano's run feels a lot like John Constantine. Like it feels a lot like Jamie Delano, not necessarily John Constantine we know from the TV shows and stuff. Mm-hmm. What was your overall view from Garth Ennis's run?
Okay. Main take I took from it was that there was a lot more plot and a lot less of the I honestly think the best explanation is what you said, the stream of conscience. Like there wasn't any, there was some stuff at the end where Delano wrapped it up where he did like that the little girl made John like trip like psychically or whatever and see his future. But when Garth Ennis took over, you didn't really have a lot of that. So I liked that. Because less confusing.
Yeah, and I kind of like this is the John Constantine we know and love, right? This is like he's still an asshole. Like there is no change on that, but he's using magic. He uses magic a lot more, and oftentimes is like not even like it's a matter of fact. Like it's just a throwaway thing. He's cunning. He's like. He makes choices, and then he's the one who's driving the plot versus things happening around him.
And he helps his friends.
And he has friends, and he's not sad. Mm-hmm. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, and also a lot of the characters that Garth Ennis introduced, I loved. Like, I thought they were great, and I think he did a really good job of wrapping them up towards the end too. Like, I don't know how they're going to continue that, but I felt like he definitely tried to like wrap up their storylines.
Right. I think like it's one of those things like these are my toys I'm introducing to this, and I'm gonna take them away as I leave. Kind of, it kind of had that feeling about it. So the thing is, like, have you read other Garth Ennis book?
No, actually, it's funny because I was really digging the Garth Ennis run, and we watched like the first 4 episodes of Preacher, and then I bought like the volume, so
Right.
it got me interested.
So I think as of right now, I have read every single Garth Ennis stuff, except for the modern, like, except for I think anything that he had done post 2010, I believe, like, because now he does a lot of war stories. So I have read way too many Ennis. That's probably not good for your health. Which I was very surprised to figure out like how young he was at that time. Like, he was very young and, kind of like part of like the whole British invasion thing. So one of the things about Ennis's, and, you can tell me whether these tick marks are there. So things about Garth Ennis that I realized after reading this, and his book are very unique. The characters are very unique. The books are very unique. So things about Garth Ennis that I realized. There will be Irish characters.
Oh.
Whole bunch of them will be Irish. And there will be Northern Irish, not just like Ireland. There will be Northern Irish because he's from Belfast. He hates the royalty. He doesn't care that much for God. He is very much like, he tries to always maintain the angels are evil, and then there is no good and evil. Like, it's very gray. Like between angels and demons is very gray. And he doesn't care for England that much.
Oh no.
And he's fascinated by New York and America. Like, he's fascinated by New York, not necessarily America as much. Well, although Preacher kind of negates what I'm just saying. But, like, it's like he's fascinated by the idea of New York, America, like, what it means and all that.
Yeah.
So do you think all of those check boxes were there?
I definitely noticed it because even like a lot of the things you said, excluding the fact that Preacher takes place in Texas, I noticed a lot of those things, Irish characters. Yeah. A lot of the stuff that, like, I haven't gotten super far in Preacher, so I don't know about like the religious stuff, but I kind of get an idea of what he was going for with it. So
right, and that's something like we're going to talk about when we get to issue volume. I have all the volumes open here. Volume 7. I think end of volume 6, because there's a storyline he repeated in Preacher as well.
Oh, really? Okay.
But I am going to say that it's a canon. That makes it better. But anyway, so let's get it going. So Ennis takes over on issue. Oh, boo! I had it all open over here. He takes over issue 41, right?
Yeah, looks like it.
Yeah, so he takes over issue 41. Delano left John Constantine in a very weird state where he's dying of cancer. And that's the character that Ennis inherited. So anyway, tell me what you think about that.
I first read that, yeah, I was really confused because the way Delano set it up, he almost made it seem like the little girl was trying to like, she was trying to like show him his future and what he could turn into. But then Garth Ennis took it a totally different route with some of the cancer stuff, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So what did you think about the way that kind of wraps up? Because, Ennis takes over, is like, wait, I'm not going to be taking a dying character. This got to go.
Yeah, that was so weird. I'm really glad the way he wrapped it up because honestly, a lot of the stuff that Delano did, as good as he was, it didn't really make sense for the plot. So it was really cool because I'm trying to make sure this is actually Garth Ennis's run that I'm looking at. But yeah, I liked that character that he was visiting in the hospital on and off.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because that guy like really helped him to understand, like, because he's basically dying.
Right. So those are also like Ennis' signature character. There will be a one-off character who will be like, you are like, whoa, this is so compelling. I love this guy. And then the guy will be dead by the time the arc is done. But it will be such a brotherly relationship that they will have. You are like, whoa, that was so good. And that's also over here, right?
I also like that you didn't really get to know much about the actual. So the guy, he's literally like, in a hospital dying on his bed, right? You didn't know much about his plot, but you knew that John's only connection to him was the fact that they were both dying as far as they knew.
Right.
So I thought that was kind of cool how he did that.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I kind of also liked that it was very, like, it wasn't sad, if you know what I mean. I feel like that kind of, it wasn't like neither of them were lamenting the fact that they're dying. They're just kind of taking it as like, yeah, I mean, it's something that happened. We're fucked, but
Well, yeah, and the old guy, like it seems he kind of lived a long life, and he kind of came to terms with what everything that was happening with him. But oh my god, the way he did die though was really brutal. Do you remember? He like blew up or something, right? Like his yeah.
You're like, oh no, I just connected with this guy.
I mean, hopefully it didn't hurt, or he didn't like suffer too long, I guess. But
it's kind of keeping up with the theme that anyone he gets close to dies a terrible death.
That's very true.
And then we're like, okay. But I really, really, really loved the way he got out. Like, he cured himself.
Mm-hmm.
The whole idea, because what he does, he goes to this 3 different demons in hell and kind of pitted them against each other. And then the only way they can get out of this if they save John, or else they're going to get into a all-out war, which they didn't want. And and what was really cool, though, this is a storyline that starts from Sandman, because in Sandman, that's where Lucifer, you know how it says that, Lucifer is gone, like he's no longer and that kind of happened, I believe, issue 7 or 6, 4, 5, or 6 issue, where Sandman actually goes there, challenges him to a battle, and beats Lucifer. And Lucifer decides that, now I'm beaten, so I need to do other things. And then that kind of continues on in the Lucifer Vertigo series.
Okay.
So I was like, whoa, so that's like a little nugget that was kind of thrown in that I was like, oh, that's pretty cool.
So that was from Sandman, you said?
Yeah, Sandman.
Okay, because I read the first volume. It's been a long time, but I felt like the reference that you were saying, it felt like it was from something, and I couldn't quite figure out what he was saying.
So. But it's one of those references, like, even if you don't know, it doesn't take you out of the story.
Oh, no, definitely not.
Yeah, so I kind of absolutely love that. But one thing I was going to say, though, like, the way he was conniving, like, he was planning and pitting these people against each other, I thought it was very Loki-like. Like, the Loki, the character from.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's very much like Loki. I'm like, like, but I absolutely loved it. Like, how he is just like, oh yeah, I'm cured now.
Also, too, it kind of introduced maybe this is another stuff too, but it kind of introduced a rule set for the demons, because I've always kind of wondered, like, they just pop up randomly, kind of. I'm sure there's some rules. If there's going to be a heaven and hell in the story, there's got to be like some sort of rules, right? So it felt kind of cool that he introduced that, like the factions of the different demons.
Right. And the thing is, like, this is also his whole story arc. Like, this is the longest running story arc from the 40 issue run that he did, or 43 issue runs that he did, because this continues. Like, because the demon, I don't know whether that's the devil himself, because later on he kind of introduces some bizarre idea about who this person, like, who this demon is.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, that was a very, that kind of continued on. Like, every big thing that happened is because of this. So there's like a long-standing thread, as you were saying, that, there's actual story here. Unlike
so there's definitely like a main plot, and then you have a bunch of subplots, which was a lot of character development, I felt like, because he's introducing all these different characters, which you do end up liking. So I thought that was cool.
Right. And I think it was in this one, right, that where he goes to visit a friend in Ireland.
Yeah. Is that before he meets Kit?
Yes. So that was his, like.
It was a short kind of just story, and he's like talking to this Irish guy that he would get really drunk with all the time, but this guy never got better, and he basically like died of alcoholism. And then you kind of just see, this was a ex-girlfriend of his friends. But the friend ended up had to deal with either the devil or some sort of demon, right?
Right. So the thing is, like, the friend had a deal with I think that's what he gets the idea from, because the friend had a demon that you can get my soul if I die before midnight, and if I die after midnight, it's not gonna happen, and it has to be a natural death or something like that. And so the friend beats the demon. And that's how I think he gets the idea, because then he goes on to be like, okay, I'm gonna pull something like this.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Like, which I thought that the whole thing, like, it starts off so strong, and I just loved the whole aspect of how we ended up with go from sad John to sexy John.
Well, yeah, and I don't know, just like the fact that he actually introduces some characters that stick around, because I feel like in Delano's run there were some characters you'd see randomly and I'm like, am I gonna see them again? Because I didn't feel like I did. It's just a random story that didn't really have an ending.
Right. And the thing is, like, the characters, even though they showed up for like a couple of issues or whatever, you remember them. These are the characters you remember.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I don't want to be like, we don't want to. It sounds like we're really beating on this, but seriously, once you read two side by side, it's very difficult not to, because you keep on like, wait, wow, this is good. You really
and the art too.
Oh yes. Yeah, like this one, like, so initially it was done by Will Simpson, who was in the art duty for that. It's really good. Like,
it definitely kicked up a notch. Like, not that the other one was bad, it was just of the times, I guess.
Right.
But this one's like great.
Especially the details of things, like, I don't know if you can see this. Let me see. Yeah, like the details of this are like much better, and you get to, like, John looks better, like, in a lot of things, because everyone said in the previous one says that, oh, he's a very good looking guy. I'm like, is he? But this one, and also, by the way, Archangel Gabriel is also introduced here, because that's who John first goes to and tell him that, oh, you need to save me, I'm dying of cancer, and he does it. And that guy pays the price for that.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about that in next. So overall, volume 5, where were you rating it?
I did a 3.5 to a 4, but like on the higher scale, because I really loved how Ennis like wrapped it up. Because I was like, where are we going with this whole cancer thing? He's not going to die, obviously, because there's like more issues. So that was cool.
60 more issues to read.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think in Goodreads I gave it a 3, because I did not like by J.B. Delano's end of run. I'm like, get it over with. Let's get it over with. I think that the 3 came just because of like that. So it's like overall, I guess 3.5. But it's like, unfortunately, Goodreads doesn't let you do half stars.
Yeah.
So I just kind of moved it down a little bit to kind of see, to kind of give it a 4. All right, so that brings us to number 6, volume 6. And one thing I forgot to mention in the other one, Chaz becomes an important character, because he was very much of a kicking boy in the previous run, but now he starts to play an important role, and I just loved that. How, and this is signature Ennis, and this is like his brotherly relationship. When he finds out that he's not dying, because John gives this whole goodbye that leaves cash with him and stuff, goodbye and stuff, and he found out he's not dying, he's like, I can't believe you didn't die. Well, see me in the bar.
Their relationship is really funny, because I feel like Chaz is constantly wanting to just write him off as a friend, but I don't know, he always comes back. So
back. All right, so volume 6 begins with a pub. This is also, by the way, the thickest of like what we have read so far, because this one has like 14 issues, where the previous ones were like 10, 11. And and also sturdy. It didn't fall apart, because something we're going to talk about in later ones. So we begin with a pub, which is like the pub that they go to. It's called Northampton. That's the pub supposedly they're always going to. And Yeah, and then the pub is burned down by goons, and there's a lot of ghostly, supernatural thing that happens on it.
That story, oh my god, to me that was a really good introduction. Like, I know he had kind of wrapped up the last volume, but to me that was a good introduction for Garth Ennis, because it got really brutal. Like the lady, when the goons like actually like set the pub on fire, something blows up. I don't know why, but
Right.
they explain how a piece of glass like cut her face off.
I know, and it's like, it's kind of like consciousness, because she's kind of already, I think she already died, but she was, so her husband passed away, and she was always kind of talking to her husband, hallucinating. We don't know whether that was a hallucination or that's really happening, because the magic in this world is kind of all over the place. But but she was talking to her husband, saying that, oh, this is what's happening to me. My face is blowing up. Like, but she was still alive. She was still holding on to her mouth. Her husband was telling, let go, let go.
And they detailed it. I was like, okay, so this is where Garth Ennis is going to go. So that prepared me for for the rest of the stuff.
Right. I mean, that was signature, because I was reading that. I'm like, classic.
Yeah, I definitely think that this volume for sure was like the true start, in my opinion, the true start for him, because you see his own unique like take on it.
Right, and then all the new characters starts to become introduced. Kit is and like his friend's girlfriend, who is like, from Northern Ireland, because one character from Northern Ireland shows up over here, and they kind of start this relationship, which kind of goes into a very interesting places later on. But yeah, so this is like the first beginning, and how it kind of ended. I loved those two issues. I just loved it. I mean, I had a glee, like I was like smiling with like glee. I'm like, this is, we're gonna be in, like, as exactly what you said, that we're gonna be in for some fun, and we were.
And also too, like you said, introducing characters. Kit was like one of my favorite characters, because
oh my god,
she wasn't someone that would take his crap. Like, I'm not saying he necessarily does it on purpose, but he's always, getting himself into crazy stuff and getting people involved. But she could see right through it, and I liked that. I thought she was a really well written character.
Oh yeah. I mean, she was like, she reminded me a lot of, like, is it Tulip or April? Tulip O'Hare, like from Preacher.
Oh, I'm not sure the name.
Yeah, April O'Hare. Who's April? I think it's Tulip. One of them. Like, Preacher's girlfriend. Like, she kind of reminded me of
the girl. She has like short hair. I can't remember her name, because we're only
like she's played by Ruth Negga in the series. Like I think when you read the book, you were gonna see there's a lot of similarities between that.
Okay, good, because I loved her in the show too.
Right, and the thing is, like, I think also another signature thing that, a girlfriend that doesn't take any crap. So which I mean, if you can look at it in both ways, that, he doesn't know, he only knows how to write one type of female character, or you can say that his female characters are not necessarily taking a lot of shit.
Also, too, I think for the time that was really good, because you didn't have like how do you say this, like the cliche type of female characters. I felt like, because I was trying, when I read stuff like this, I try to read it in the time period that it was written, and think about it that way, because there's going to be stuff that might not reach today, but I thought that he did a pretty good job considering.
Right, absolutely. And so once that is kind of goes, we kind of go, then it starts to become like a lot of small issues, where one thing, and it's all about introducing different friends, like, introducing different friends that we talked about before, who are very much Garth and the special, and it's just like every issue kind of follows that.
And enemies too, though.
Sorry?
And enemies too.
Oh, and enemies. Yes. My God, some of those things. But who was it? Steve Dillon takes over as the artist. He sadly passed away in 2015. So the thing is, like, him and Garth Ennis had a very strong relationship, because he ended up doing entire Punisher Max. I think either he was his best man for the wedding. So that's how much of a good relationship they had. And he takes over art department of that. And my God, look at this.
Yeah.
Look how hot John. Like, come on now. Like, come, look at this. Look at this. So, I mean, I'm kind of partial about Steve Dillon's art because I think that his art kind of starts to meld in. Like, every character starts to look the same.
Oh,
but
okay.
he done John justice at least.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Now I know, I'm like, okay, now I see what everyone's talking about, that he's a good looking guy. Like, because that's what everyone talks about all the time. Like, it's he's like, such a pretty boy or whatever. And I'm like, weird.
Well, that, and also, do you know who does the art for, like, some of the art is different, like, I'm trying to find it real quick. On the front part of the issues, it's like this really, like, detailed, like, it looks like an oil painting. Here, I'm gonna try and put one up.
No, hang on. Let me, okay.
Like this. Do you know who does this art?
Do you know the issue number?
Here, let me see. It might say it on the front.
Yeah, it says, like, typically on the font, it says that who's the artist.
William Simpson.
Will Simpson, yes.
Yeah.
So Will Simpson and Garth Ennis, I think, did the most of the artwork over here with some guest artists. But anyway, so the thing is, just Steve Dillon, this is like the first time he done the art, and this issue is kind of like a Christmas. It's all about Christmas. Like,
sorry, I'm done. I was just showing like it's like oil paintings basically, but they transferred it onto the.
Right. Yeah. But the thing is, like, those are some gruesome ass. Like, every cover of this, you're like,
Yeah. It just like, yeah, kind of, because the art's very different, and then you switch to that and you're like, oh, okay.
Okay. And that's the thing, I really wish that there were some that kind of kept on with the cover art, but I would understand how, like, how difficult it would have been to kind of keep up with that in terms of time and stuff. But anyway, so the thing is, at the end of the Christmas episode, Kit and him gets together, which I was, as much as I'm like, yay, but the part of me were like, oh no, this is not going to end well.
Yeah, I thought that at first, I'm not gonna lie. But then, okay, because you know how we talked about, like, in Delano's run, he was just such a sad sack all the time.
Right.
The one thing I really liked about her is, like, he finally started to become, like, stable and, like, just not such a mess all the time. I mean, that changes later on, but at least for a few volumes, he was pretty stable.
Right. And the thing is, like, he was happy. He was like, and that's something that, that was part of their relationship, because he keeps on saying that you're making me happy. Like, I've never been like this with anyone, and you are giving me that. And that all comes down to the fact that she does not give a shit about his bullshit. Like, yeah. She's like, no, you're not doing this,
Yeah, and also she genuinely cares is the vibe I get, so.
Right. It's a very, like, understand, like, it's a relationship of the equal. Like, it's not like she's not a damsel in distress, or, she doesn't, like, she doesn't need to be saved. And, he, on the other hand, he's the, man in distress.
Yeah. Emotionally, like he can do so many things, but emotionally he's his own worst enemy in a lot of stuff. So
yeah. I mean, that man just keeps on, like, sabotaging himself. So anyway, so as the relationship is kind of kicking into a good gear, issue 50 is kind of follows. So did you know what happened in issue 50? Can you explain to me?
Does that start with the Vampire King or no?
Yeah. So I know that the guy comes back later. So what was his deal? He just coming to say, like, come work for me, John Constantine, because you're cool.
Yeah, so they introduced him, and then they showed a lot of, like, gory things about the Vampire King himself, and, like, all these different time periods where he existed. So it's kind of weird because you flip back and forth between that, and then you'll see, like, stuff where he's, like, happy.
Yeah.
So it'll be like the Vampire King on this panel, and then him and his friend. So
I'm like, oh no, ghost of Jamie Delano.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, even though it was written by Ennis.
Yeah.
We're like,
I remember exactly, like, I mean, I thought the Vampire King was cool. I kind of hoped there was going to be more with him. He does come back later. But yeah, you don't really get, like, a super, like, closure on it, because there's so many other demons that get introduced too. So
right, yeah. And one of the demons, Ellie, becomes a very instrumental. who I think introduced who's introduced in the previous one, but we forgot to mention. But she becomes very instrumental in later issues. I honestly thought that he's gonna hook up with her.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just remembering something. So we get introduced to the Vampire King. I remember something later, but I'm gonna wait till we get to that volume. I don't know if it's gonna come up again, and maybe another author will pick it up because something happens to the Vampire King. So I'm wondering.
Okay. Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Okay. The next issue is kind of set in the laundromat. As I'm reading, this shit is not written by Garth Ennis, and it wasn't. It was written by John Smith, I believe. Like, who was it written by? Let's see. It was a guest writer. John Smith, first American to write Hellblazer.
Okay.
One of the 3 Americans to write Hellblazer. Which was something that I actually kind of figured I saw, like, because you could see that who wrote what and how. Him, Brian Azzarello, and Jason Aaron are the 3 Americans that ever wrote Hellblazer in this 300-issue run. Everyone else is from Great Britain. So I thought that was very interesting. And then, so as the first American, he wrote a Hellblazer issue that takes place in a laundromat.
Well, okay. So what I'm going to ask you, were those 3 like ladies? Were they like ghosts or something? Because why did that one lady come back? Because so he's in a laundromat and he's talking to these 3 little ladies. You see like different interactions with other people there, and then they're talking about their friend, and then they're saying, "Oh, she's gonna come back, but she's supposed to be here at a certain time or whatever." But then they also say how her son moved her and she got depressed about it and like jumped out a window,
right?
And lost her leg or.
I'm saying, it felt like, it was interesting. It was an interesting story. It's very in line with other one shots of kind of very very supernatural, but you're not sure which way this is going, or is it really supernatural or is someone's hallucination? But I was like, okay, it was good. It never comes back.
And then what I was also so connected to that, you just mentioned the Christmas issue recently. The Lord of the Dance guy. So he's talking about how he asked John, like whenever he saw him, because he could see him in the crowd and I guess nobody else could. He was like, I think he said, are you like a sensitive or something like that? Because he's like, why can you see me? So I don't know if that was his way of kind of introducing the fact that John can see different ghosts sometimes.
You know what I mean? Changed my mind.
I don't know if that's what he was going for, but it felt like it. And then you have the laundromat issue, like kind of closely after, where it's like, obviously this lady's not alive because they said she jumped out a window. So,
and I don't think the other ladies are alive either.
They can't be, right? Because
because I was actually thinking like, oh, we are already dead and we're just around. And it was like, but it was just also a lot going on, and I'm like, oh, okay, good. I was hoping for it to come back in some way. But it also explains the fact whether he washes his jacket, which apparently he does. So
I didn't even think about that. That's so funny. He does go to the laundromat. So maybe
in the issue 50, they talk about he wears his jacket and they're like, this is the jacket he's not going to trade for money or for magic or fame or whatever. I'm like, oh, please tell me he washes that jacket. And we're going to talk, that jacket is going to come back later because I had thought about that jacket.
That's horrible.
Anyway, so after that, we kind of went into Royal Blood, part 1 of Royal Blood, this whole issue, which I also like to call Garth Ennis Do Not Care for Royalty.
Yeah, okay, so is that what he was trying to like, I don't know, allude to, I guess, on that?
I guess. I mean, it was pretty much like, so one of the royal members, they never mention the name, but he loses his mind after being part of this cult where you can go and do anything you want in this secret society. And then he brings out the demon which takes over his soul, and now he's going out there and killing people brutally. I mean, when we say brutal, we mean this. Like, look at this.
Yeah.
Like, come on, look at this. Ugh. Hang on, let's see.
And also too, you don't know, somebody's possessed, right? And he's going around and this demon is like killing people and eating them, but you don't find out till the end that that one, I can't remember who he was, but I don't know if he was the guy that ran the club, but that he was the one that actually like summoned the demon, right?
Right, like he's like some kind of like lord of something, because has to do in British Parliament. He was kind of going about, and he thought that he can somehow get John to be his lapdog, which was horrible. Like, no, he doesn't do that. And
like he wouldn't figure that out.
You get to see that you can't tame that man. You get to see that John just randomly using magic, because that guy who comes to him is like, oh, are you John? Like, he started talking to some person thinking that it's John, but no, it wasn't. And then it's this little usage of magic which we never seen him done before, but now he's just like very lackadaisical about his magic usage.
Well, and also I noticed a lot of the magic that he uses is like doing like either, I guess, like incantations or like like sigils where they like write it. So a lot of that is him like writing sigils on the floor or on different things.
Right, like that's the rule of magic in this, like kind of in this universe. And also introduce his new friend. I forgot. I'm forgetting his name. Like, he's like the really anti establishment kind of friend.
Like, he has like a rat tail.
Say that again.
He has like a rat tail on his.
Right. Nigel, I think. Nigel. Yeah. So
Nigel
gets introduced over here, and then it was one of those things like he's very anti-establishment, and then always screaming about capitalism and all that, and then he's very good about summoning. He's like, what's that word called? Like, he can summon dead people, like like dead people spirit, which is like kind of also another thing. Is like, okay, so he's like a deadbeat, but he has this awesome power.
Yeah, because they did originally, before they found out that guy had summoned the demon, they did like a seance with a bunch of the people that like knew the guy that was possessed, and then they also had like dead bodies that they had to hold hands with, I think.
Right, and then there was like the dead bodies of the people that he killed, and then they were just there, and I was like, oh, this is
making them like bring back I guess like I don't know if it's like their soul or something like that.
Right, and I was like, oh. And it was just about, and it's like kind of brings back the whole thing about demons' name matters, because that's like something about like a witchcraft or occult lore is like name matters a lot, because you can bind demons with that, and this kind of brings back to that. And the whole reason they needed to do the seance is because they needed the name, so they can later get the guy. But boy, they get the guy. Like, look at this. Like, I can't.
That's a good point with the name thing. I don't know if I caught on to that.
Oh God, look at this. Oh my God. Like, there are some really like vicious, especially in this arc, there's some really vicious like artwork in them, because you're like, oh my God. And then so then there's also like this another brother character, like the brother of the royal family member who was kind of terrorizing and was possessed. He also has a whole part and comes back later as well. And that guy was like pretty sad, which I think that's when I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. You don't like British, like royal family. I get it, sir. I get it.
I didn't know that. I mean, yeah, that's funny though, because now that's going to make me like think about it more if I go back and read it.
Right. I mean, it's one of those things like, I kind of wonder, like, if like you read, this is your first Ennis read, right? So, but the thing is, like, this was also his first work. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, I'm doing it backwards. Like, I'm going back to his first work after reading everything else. But this was actually his first work. So it was kind of one of those things like, oh, he was already hinting what kind of writer he wants to be. And he maintained that throughout his entire career, which I thought was pretty interesting.
Was he already, do you know if he was already working on Preacher, or was it,
Preacher started in 95. And I think this ended somewhere in 96, but he started this, I think, in 93.
Maybe it gave him some ideas. I don't know.
Don't quote me on that.
Okay.
Someone look it up. But I know that this was one of his first work. Okay, so,
that's cool.
Yeah, so the thing is, like, 93. Belfast 93. That's when he started, like, with Hellblazer. So then that kind of ends with like a very typical fashion. Then you're like, oh great, like, a whole bunch of people died, and then a whole bunch of people get their comeuppance, which I really love that part. Like, everyone who deserves a terrible death, they get it.
Well, Do you mind if I bring up like one of this isn't like a main plot, it was kind of like a subplot that they had.
Yeah, go for it.
So there was this, I guess it was I don't know if it was a medical facility or some sort of government facility or something, but they were digging out people's bodies from graves and using them as like target practice. And you don't really know why, but then, huh?
That comes in the next arc.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, talk about it.
Oh, so I was just saying, like, I guess to me that was a really good story. The way he, because that was like a single story by itself, right? Like it doesn't, yeah.
And that kind of solidifies his relationship with Chaz, because what happened, like those people who were digging up bodies without the consent of the family members, Chaz's uncle passed away, just normally, and they kind of dug up his body and then just decided to use target practice, and then they go to rescue the, like, get the dead body back, because what happens if they do that, then their soul gets trapped and they can't. And it was between him and Chaz and how they get to bond. Like, I think that was like the main target of it, that to show their solidarity. I mean, what did you think?
And well, that, and also it kind of, like we were talking about, it shows a lot more of the magic rules in the world. So it shows like how the souls were trapped, because you kind of saw with the seances that souls could be like trapped in a certain place. But what I thought was interesting is I don't know if he's a doctor or whoever was the head of the program, he didn't realize he was trapping the souls. I don't even know what his purpose was of doing this, but
he was crazy. That's all. No, I mean, that's what it shows, that he was only doing this, like, he was like some kind of scientist that was figuring out the effect of different weapon on people. And I think the whole idea was he was just kind of practicing on a dead body, but he was slowly escalating to, if they didn't stop him, he would be escalating to do it on live targets, because I think that was the whole point. And he also gets his comeuppance in the end, like, the guy just pretty much just like stabbed his own eyes, but I just love the fact that he just lets Chaz takes his revenge. There was like no discussion about it, and then they were like, "Oh, do you want to go get a drink?" Like,
and also too, I mean, maybe, I don't know, I felt like this was a good example of him doing because you said it was like an arc or whatever. It was a good example of him wrapping up a story that didn't really deal with the main plot, but it kind of wrapped up, like you said, his relationship with Chaz. It kind of introduced you to that.
Right. And then he also looked like, I just love the idea that he's like, so how are we going to get out of here? He's like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
That's also a very John thing to say. It's like, he's like, how do we get out then? And he's like, ow, how the bloody hell I know? So that was that. But in the middle of that, just before that, there was a whole thing with a diary. Do you remember that guy? Like, he was, that was also like a one-shot arc. This guy was going around and telling all his secrets, and just in the middle of the train, and then just he kind of piques John's interest because he was in the same metro. And then he follows him home and like, hey buddy, what's up? And that also goes to show his talent, that he kind of picks up on these things. And come to find out, he actually traded his soul every 5 years by doing a sacrifice.
Yeah.
And always sacrificing babies. And that was like,
because he sacrificed his own child and wife.
Yeah, own child and wife. Bought him 5 years, and he was planning on doing it again by kidnapping another child, another baby. Like, it's not even a child that will walk around like a baby for the next 5 years. And it also introduces a demon. I just love this, like, one shots that are introducing different characters who comes back later to kind of complete the arcs.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like, you kind of get like a horrific story, and at the same time get introduced to a character.
And also, yeah, I totally forgot about that one. I guess I skipped it on accident when I was looking through it again. But yeah, it definitely a theme of souls still.
Right. And then that brings us to the last arc of this volume, which is, I don't know what it's called. I mean, I don't think it has any name. Oh, Guys and Dolls. This was we come back to the previous, like the whole demon that he comes back to that whole idea, because that's like the overarching story. The demon that he fooled in order to give him more life. he comes back because he's not going down without a fight, because you cannot just fool a demon and then think that you can get away with it. And that demon is coming up with all this thing, and Allie, his ally, his demon ally, from that episode comes back in a big way, and it shows why she owes him this favor. And my God, what a favor it was.
Yes. Is she technically, I know she's a demon, but is she also a succubus? Is that the lady that falls in love with one of the angels, right?
Right. So the thing is, like, I don't know whether there's a, like, it's that an Ennis special, or that's like in the mythology, that's a thing.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I mean, I'm asking.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, but I thought it was interesting.
Right? Because
yeah,
the whole thing, and this is kind of also where he's always trying to show that heaven is not what it's cracked up to be. Because what happens is that she's a demon, like she was one of the fallen angels, and she falls in love with an angel, like, you know, wings and all.
Yeah,
a very sexy one. I'm like,
well, and originally she tried to trick him, right? And then, but then he was like so nice, and all he was trying to show her was love, and then she realized, wait, maybe I don't want to kill him.
Yeah, I don't want to kill him, and falls in love, and she gets pregnant. They come to John to ask for help, and John is like, okay. So he initially thought that it was the demons who sent someone after them to kill them. So he goes to the same mental facility as the other one and tries to find, okay, tell me who done it, like, who is it? And then realized that it was actually heaven who sent, like, you know, who put out the hit. And by the time he gets back, he couldn't save the angel or the baby. So one of the things, like I was telling you, that, you know, the canon for Preacher, this storyline kind of comes back.
Oh, okay.
In Preacher. So when you read Preacher, do let me know, because it will be an interesting. Yeah, because it's an interesting viewpoint, which I was kind of interested, like, you know, happy to see that, because this is kind of also. Have you seen Good Omens yet?
Oh my God, yes. I wanted to mention it, but I didn't know if we should, because I was like, it's reminding me a lot of that. I read the book and watched the show.
Right? So it was like a lot of that kind of repeats itself over here as well. Because I'm like, did Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman steal it from here? Because which came first? Because it's the whole idea that, you know, heaven and hell is not very clear cut. It's not black and white at all. Like, you know, both sides have a certain status to maintain, but then it's kind of like, okay, at least with hell, you know what you're getting, but with heaven, you have no idea. Like, you know, those angels are kind of sneaky.
Their motivations are not quite what you'd think. And I also think that, I don't know, I love when they do that in stories, because I loved it when they did it in Good Omens. I definitely think here, I don't know, would you say that the angels did anything that was outright evil, or were they just like so self-righteous that they couldn't see past, you know?
Right. It's the idea is like the rules are rules. Like, to me personally, I think they're driven by you did something against the rule and you're going to pay the price.
Yeah.
Versus, you know, hell is a little bit more lackadaisical about their thing. They're more like, is that going to give me more power? And they're driven by that more, which is kind of like how it is in Good Omens as well. But I really enjoyed this, because this kind of shows that how his relationship with Ellie and what it is about. Because initially you kind of think that it was probably a sexual favor kind of situation.
I did too, because I wasn't sure. I thought, oh, maybe that's just like an ex that I don't know.
Right. He pissed off or something. Like, you know, he pissed him off or something. But no, it's actually far deeper than that.
And I'm glad they went into it too. Like,
right. And then that kind of ends this volume, a thick one. So it kind of took us the longest to talk about. So what did you overall give this volume?
I gave it like a high 4.5 to a 5. I really liked it. And I put it on my favorites list.
Right. I gave it a full 5-star as well, which I was like, because the whole time I was reading it, I was like glee. I was like, you know, smiling big, and then, you know, just talking about it and stuff like that. So completely agree. It's like also a 5-star. So that brings us to Tainted Love, volume 7. So do you want to talk about how your volume 7 fell apart?
Okay, so I had issues with volume 7 and 8, and it has to do with the binding. I think these are the two that I fixed with glue. So it's weird. The actual pages themselves, I don't know if it's part sewn and part glue. Those were fine. I don't know if you can see the glue for that's fine.
Right.
But if you lift up, let me see if I can do it on this one. No, I thought that was. Sorry, I don't want to actually rip my.
Right.
Okay, yeah, you can see it on this one. It's coming detached.
Oh, yes.
Right there.
Yes. And that's volume 7.
This is actually 8.
Oh, yeah.
Fine. I fixed it, but I don't think I put enough glue right there. So
the same exact problem, if you can see. Hang on.
And it was only those volumes I looked. I
like,
didn't see on the other ones.
Like, look at this. Look at mine.
Yeah.
It's like, it's the same volume 8 for both of us. So
I
don't know whether what happened for the production, because here's the thing. Like, if you look at volume 6 and 7 side by side, volume 6 is actually thicker.
Yeah, 7's not that big, right? It's
like, neither 8 nor 7 is that thick. So I was like, okay.
Okay, get this though. You got it from somewhere else, but also In Stock Trades was really awesome, and they sent me another one for volume 7. That one had the same issue, so it's definitely not whoever shipped it to me. It was the manufacturer.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right.
So, here's the thing. My volume 7, it's like, now looking at it, look, it's already happening though. Because
it's after the first page, and then the I don't know.
Yeah, like, see?
Yep.
Yeah, it's happening though. So something happened in the production of it. Something to think about, when you're buying them. But
do you mind if I show the glue that people mentioned?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. No plug, obviously. Hopefully
it'll. PVA, yes.
And on Amazon for this huge bottle, it was like $8.
Right. I mean, after you told me about it, I went and bought it because I have like another omnibus that also needs fixing. But I'm like, I don't spend $8 just to fix one. But now I have an excuse,
Well, I had to fix 2. So.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. As long as it's 2 or 3, like, they make and I feel like I have to do the same with volume 7 at some point as well. So let's start talking about the issue on this. We can go back on this a little faster. Because it's kind of all culminating. So it starts with him introducing Kit to his family, which I was kind of surprised that his family is still, like, Ennis kept his family around, because I thought that they're gonna go.
It's just his sister and his niece, really, though, right?
Right, like from the previous run. They kind of go and talk to Kit. His niece starts to get into an occult that he doesn't approve of, and he kind of goes and take care of that business, which I thought was very cute.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah, I was like, oh, look, that it kind of shows that you're talking about stability, that he's becoming stable and he's becoming a little bit more in touch. So that was that. Then it's his 40th birthday, where he had a nervous breakdown about being 40, and it's like all the friends that Ennis was introducing throughout comes back together and then have a celebration.
And some surprise characters too from other stuff.
Oh, tell me.
So she looks weird in here. Well, that sounds mean, but she has a bad haircut. But Zatanna's in there.
Oh, yes.
And Swamp Thing. And one of the funniest, there's also another guy that I don't personally know who he is, but he shows up. Let me see if I can find him. I don't know. I can't find him, but let me show you the other thing I thought was funny, though. So everybody's like just kind of drinking and hanging out, right? Swamp Thing comes. He shows up to the party as through a piece of broccoli, and then he creates some more fun for the party, and I thought that was hilarious.
Right, it was hilarious. And the thing is, like, he was very upset, right?
Yeah.
Like, he was like, oh, like, you decide to. It's like, no, mate, it's his birthday. Like, I just invited you for his birthday. Oh,
he didn't know. It was so funny.
It was a very Swamp thing to do.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I really now want a Garth Ennis Swamp Thing.
Oh, that would be great. That would be fun.
Yeah, because it was like, a very Swamp Thing to do. So anyway, so he gets upset about that. And then because Kit was away and she comes back, and then she's like, oh my God, what you did to my apartment. I thought this would be the end, right?
He was mad.
But No, it wasn't. It was just a very much of like, hey, like, how dare, like,
Yeah.
ruin my apartment. After that comes the scariest, like, it was the most tragic arc I've ever seen, probably, or read, where Angel Gabriel has a very traumatic event.
Yeah, that's where you let's see. That's where the girl starts like trying to seduce him, right?
Right. So we see a girl trying to seduce. Angel Gabriel, that show that was in the first volume, or like first of Ennis's arc. He's like just sitting in a club and just looking smug. That's his deal, right? And he kind of contemplates about his role in this whole universe, and then decides that he has questions. So he ventures out. However, the club was operated by a very racist, like a white supremacist kind of person, and he wouldn't have it. But the thing is, as Gabriel is out there, John is decided to take some action and make sure that he ends up working for him.
Yeah.
And for that, there's this woman who is out there seducing him. Later, we find out who that is, and things doesn't go well for Gabriel.
That was a really good plot twist. I'm not gonna lie, because I don't know. I kind of believed. Maybe I'm bad at. I don't know. I believed the girl. I thought, oh, she looks so innocent. Maybe she just thinks he's hot or something. I don't know.
Right. I mean, he looked like a very standard looking, good looking guy, and he's tall and everything, and yeah, it was so sad. So I have this whole problem with anytime a winged creature loses their wing, it's a pet peeve of mine.
Ooh, so you're not.
I cannot stand that. Like, I'm like, no, please no. Like, remember Maleficent, the movie?
Oh, yeah.
Oh my God. That's well, I know that it was a metaphor for something way weird. But I mean, the idea, and then here, Constantine. So turns out that it was Ellie who was, seduced him. And that was and it was all because Constantine was trying to get Gabriel to work for him, so he can find, like, when the devil finally comes to claim, he can put him as a thing, which kind of doesn't work out later. But in the process, he just pulls out this whole, like, what is that? A chainsaw? He's like, well, if you're gonna be working for me, we can't have the wing.
Yeah.
A mile away. By the way, a wing that he can conceal. But
also, yeah.
But he didn't listen to that. He's like, oh, we're going to take that wing.
A little bit before the wings, too, Ellie, I guess we're just going to call her a demon because I'm not really sure. But obviously her power is she can seduce people.
Right.
But they actually are hooking up. And right as they're hooking up, she pulls his heart still beating out of his chest.
Right. And that's their leverage. The leverage is like, if we don't give you the heart, you cannot be... Like, I think you cannot be judged, or you cannot go anywhere. Neither heaven nor hell will accept him.
So he's stuck, basically. Because I was wondering, like, what significance. I knew obviously he couldn't go anywhere, but I didn't know what that meant, that they took his heart. Like,
that I was not very, but I was just so shocked by the whole revelation and whole of this. I was like,
brutal.
This is not going to end well, and this is just all because he denied him a cure. This is like John Constantine being an asshole at his prime, because it's like, you denied me that, and I'm going to take everything from you. Like, I was like, ooh, let's not cross this man.
And it also shows, like, definitely more so of John's moral standing of what he thinks about, like, the different factions and.
Yeah, I didn't know whether it was John's standing or it was Garth Ennis' standing. If you know what I mean.
That, but
it's one of those things. I'm like, who's standing? But the thing is that I feel like the whole thing that happened with Ellie, it did not left him with a lot of good faith for heaven. Like, I think that's why he was not. He's far more crueler to angels than he is to demons.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, and there are also like a lot of like. Which is something that I didn't care for. Is like a black, one of his black friend is tortured and killed by.
Oh, that was.
That was like, I was like, oh no,
That was it was brutal too. So because also like with everything, the art is very descriptive on what's going on. So
right. And the thing is, like, it's once again kind of like, all his close friends meets a terrible death just by being around him. Keeps up with that theme, but it's like, I'm like, oh no, I don't care for this.
Yeah.
But with all these shenanigans, he also gets his comeuppance right after this, because our fear that Kit is eventually going to leave him, it does happen. She ends up leaving him. And that leaves him in this terrible situation where he just starts drinking, becomes homeless. He goes to Chaz for help, but then was like mean to him. So Chaz kicks him out. And then he goes on to this whole homeless situation where, I mean, Bethany, I can tell you, I could smell how dirty and disgusting he was. And I'm like, and I told you before that the jacket's gonna come back. I keep on thinking, anyone washing that jacket?
So I was gonna say too, just real quickly, the thing with Kit, the reason why she ends up leaving him is because a couple of guys like show up at their apartment, and thankfully, like, she's pretty strong, so she was able to, like, she got a knife and like stabbed him in the crotch.
Another Ennis thing. And I'm like, so much violence against male genitals.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, that's an Ennis thing.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's a good way to get him to stop coming at you, though.
Right. No, I mean, yeah, sure. Hey, whatever gets the job done. So yeah, but the thing is that Kit's the whole thing was, you promised that this is not, your life is not going to affect me.
Don't bring your work home.
Yeah, don't bring that's pretty much what it was. And then then he becomes homeless, and my God, he was very stinking. I mean, I could smell it from here. That was the whole thing. Like, I cannot stand it when someone says that, oh, you smell this. No one even need to say that. The way he was just throwing up and he was just drinking and everything looked so dirty, I was like, oh no.
Well, and also he got to the point where, like, I don't know why obviously this isn't legal, but the guy at the liquor store ends up selling him something. What was it? It wasn't alcohol. Was it like rubbing alcohol? Yeah, because it's obviously a higher alcohol content, so he's going to get really messed up on it. So he starts drinking that instead.
Yeah, 90s was weird time. Yeah. People were selling, and then the vampire comes back, makes a visit, and also one of the things, like, people he makes close contact with and a close relationship out of like almost nothing. And you kind of end up rooting for that relationship, just goes completely sideways because they happen to make a relationship with John Constantine. Here he befriends a homeless boy who is kind of selling himself as a prostitute, and it's a very, very, like, difficult and tragic life. But because he seemed to be around John, the vampire gets to him. And, oh God.
So that one was pretty sad because it was pretty dark, like showing, like, stuff that you could see being a real situation.
Right.
I will say though, the way the vampire died made me laugh because he would not stop talking. Like, his dialogue just kept going. He's talking about, oh, and I did this back in, like, was it World War I or II? I don't remember what they were talking about. And talking about eating like soldiers on the field and all this crazy stuff. And John's just sitting there like out of his mind, wasted, not saying anything. And and then you also see the Vampire King's, I guess they're both his lovers. I'm not really sure.
Oh, I know. That was weird.
Yeah.
But anyway, so, and then he just, like, and even with all his, like, completely drunk out of his mind, he just drags a vampire in the sun.
Well, that's what cracked me up, because the guy just was so full of himself. He couldn't stop talking about how he was such a great vampire king and he was so cool. And then literally all John did was like, oh, you've been talking too long and the sun's about to come up. So
yeah, that's pretty cool. So he's been talking all night and he was just listening and just waiting. But the thing is, it goes to show you how how street smart he is. He just waited his time, and he's drunk out of his mind, by the way. But even then, he was like, "Nope, come here," and then just drags him down. And then there's this other story. He shares this other story with this new homeless person he decides to kind of share a spot with, and that was about like one of his friend getting his comeuppance because he was trying to seduce women and he happened to piss off the wrong women, and then the women made a deal with the devil, and then it was like, oh boy. That ended with like a pretty, like, once again, violence, like, like his violence against male genitals.
Oh God. See, it's funny because you're pointing stuff out that I think I kind of glossed over since this was my first introduction to him as an author. But now that you're saying that, I'm like, okay, I'm connecting the dots now.
No, but the thing is that you're gonna see it. But that's what I'm saying though, because I'm seeing this, even though it was his first work, it never left him, and you're gonna see it having read his first work. Now as you're gonna kind of jump into his other things. I'm an Ennis expert. You can ask me, like, things about it. I will tell you. And I'm beginning to see this now. I'm like, this is the way you work. Which is fine,
Yeah.
So anyway, so then we kind of go into, I didn't necessarily care for that Kit in Belfast, like, her life and all that, which was, I think, it's an Ennis special because it's in Belfast and it's where he's at, and he needed to kind of know that people in Belfast are not that bad.
I was gonna say, like, was he just trying to show more aspects of her character? Because I didn't really, not that I hated it, I just didn't really care for it either. I kind of like glossed over. I was like, oh, okay. But I wonder
because I think I would have cared for it more if she was still with John. And I kind of had it in the background of like, okay, maybe some of this will come back. That maybe John will come to Belfast and they're gonna reconcile and everything. So spoiler alert, it didn't happen. So at that point, I'm like, okay, so then what's the point of this? Why are we still following Kit?
Yeah, it was just their friend, all her friends from her past getting drunk, and I'm like, I don't really care about her friends though. So what?
Right. And so the thing is, like, that you haven't read it yet. The last in the volume 8, Heartland.
No, it's like 20 or 30 pages, and it's just like that, right?
Right. It kind of gives a lot more about Kit, which I was a little upset that wasn't part of in the middle of the run.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Like, I would like to know all of this about Kit beforehand. That would have been a little bit more interesting, but I kind of know it. And all those things also happens after she left John. So I don't know, maybe. But the thing is, like, there's a lot of background that's given on her that I'm like, oh, I would love to see it earlier. Like, that would have been interesting. But anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
And then kind of John is still drunk, still upset, and then he falls asleep next to a skeleton, which happens to be a bomber pilot from World War II. World War II and Vietnam War also. Ennis thing.
I was going to ask you, because I can remember, I didn't like look up what wars he was referencing, but there was definitely, because like even the Vampire King, there was a war reference.
Right. He loves his wars. He pretty much went to every single publisher and then wrote a war story for them. Like,
really?
Entire Punisher is like war story. He wrote Punisher Max, like the Platoon, a war story. Nick Fury, once again, war story. He wrote war stories for like Avatar. It's called war stories for Avatar Press, I believe. So yeah, that's the guy's thing, which is okay. And then so then he kind of realized, he falls asleep, touches the skeleton, all the skeleton's memory gets downloaded on him, and he realized he shouldn't be a hobo. So then he goes and this is now a shave, like shave. The jacket gets cleaned, you guys.
I think it's the cleaners.
He should never be wearing that same jacket. I really hope this is a different jacket. I'm upset with this jacket. I hope it's a new jacket, because the other one had seen some shit, and I hope that that's not the case. But yeah, also he uses magic on some guy and then said, like, oh, give me money. Like, no, the guy comes to him that I just want to give you some money.
Oh, and you can do like suggestion, right?
Right? So how powerful is this man? Because can he mind control?
Do you think, I don't know, I think Ennis maybe like helped start a lot of the rules for his magic, but I'm wondering if he's a lot more powerful than he leads on, and we just haven't witnessed it yet.
Right. That's what I kind of thought as well. Like, he is way powerful, and he just he doesn't abuse it as much. That's kind of like, his good thing about him. He doesn't abuse it as much. But if he decides to join the other side,
because they call him like Magus or Magus. How do you say that?
Oh, really? What is that?
Magus.
Oh, okay. But what does it mean?
I have to Google it. I just know it's a powerful wizard, though, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Well, I'll look it up and I'll get back to you. But
okay, sounds good. The next episode. And then this whole one issue of Confessional, which was wild, Bethany.
That one was really crazy, and I'm trying to see. It's actually weird because you see the whole scenario take place where they do like a flashback of this guy that he met while was he like hitchhiking or something?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I guess he was like a teenager or early 20s, and he's like hitchhiking. This guy picks him up. Just seems like a normal guy, but then they're in the middle of a conversation, and the guy offers like a sexual act to him, and John's like, "What?"
Right.
Then he kind of tries to make it seem like he's going to trap him, like he's going to lock him in the car, and you can't do anything about it. So yeah, as he's about to do it, the guy goes to do the thing. John like knees him in the face, right? And then, but unbeknownst to him, the guy was going to cut him with a razor, and the razor like lodged up into his lip. Yeah. So there's like blood like splurting.
Right. And then that was like a whole thing. And then he meets up with this because then the priest, it turns out he was a priest.
Yeah.
And then he really done some weird stuff and like some terrible stuff. And then turns out that the same devil that's hunting John corrupted him at later, and then told him his secret that he couldn't handle. And then he decided goes mad. Spends a lot of time in the madhouse, and then the day he comes out, he encounters John, and then they both go into this church, and he tells his story, which John listens, and then the priest just decides to kill himself by putting 2 pencils or like up his eyes, and then just just put the pencil, and then just does on the pew, and then I was like.
So other than like the weirdness of this, right? I thought, now that I'm thinking about it, that's kind of cool because it shows how that demon or the devil was unbeknownst to John kind of not in his life, but inadvertently in his life, I guess, like in his past.
And the fact that devil has been doing some weird shady stuff.
For a while.
we later found out it's not your standard devil though. It's not the devil because I think in Vertigo universe that's Lucifer. Like Lucifer is a fallen angel. This is not that. Like he has like this. We're going to talk about it in the next volume. And then so then he kind of does do that. So and that ends volume 7. What did you think about it?
Overall? I think 3.5 to a 4. Honestly, most of the Garth Ennis stuff, even at its weak points, I still wanted to give it like close to a 4, just because. Like the plot was so good, and I love the characters, so yeah.
Right. I gave this one a 5 as well because I think the last one got me because I'm like
the confession one, you mean?
Yeah, the confessional.
That was brutal.
Anyway, so that brings us to volume 8, Bloodline, and it starts off with this whole thing about America. No, it's not Bloodline.
Yeah, right. This one.
What's the other one? Where is it? Oh yeah, no, it's
Rake at the Gates of Hell.
Rake at the Gates of Hell.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rake at the Gates of Hell. So it starts with this whole thing about John going to America and all the things about JFK.
Yeah, so it's all the dark history of America. That's the best way I saw it explained, is that it's dark aspects of America, like all the bad stuff because. I don't know. You said he doesn't like England, and maybe this was like him trying to show like America's got some bad stuff too in its history.
Right. And I think it's like, although one thing I'm gonna say though, I do not understand British writers' obsession with JFK. Like,
I didn't know that, and
Ellis, the other one, Warren Ellis. If you read Warren Ellis's work, he brings out JFK and Jacqueline in so many of them, and in every one of them, JFK is a villain. Like he's portrayed as a doofus. Like I'm like, so did JFK did something to England that caused a rift?
I noticed they brought up Lincoln like in a small part too, and I'm wondering. This is just my opinion. I don't know if this is true, but what if because it was so crazy to have those both presidents that like assassinated, right? What if they thought because of the gruesomeness of his death, maybe that's kind of why they like talking about it? Like
Yeah.
the gruesome factor, maybe. I'm not really sure, but
I know, because the whole thing was like JFK, like, John gets trapped in a limbo by this one drug dealer, which we have seen in one of the first volumes in Delano's run. Because he comes back to America for whatever, and then they realize that, oh, he's at a weaker because has his guards down. Also, John wearing a black coat. I'm sorry, that happened later. That is not acceptable. He looks so weird so what happens was he was trapped in a limbo. So his body was thrown into a police station, which once again, people were trying to rape him. People were trying to, piss on him, because you told me that, oh, that coat gets a whole other level of abuse.
You're like, ooh, his coat. And I'm like, just wait a little bit.
So that was happening while he's trapped in a limbo. And over there, he's talking to JFK, who has his hand over his, over his wound after
the shot wound.
Yeah, after the he was shot. And he's just kind of talking in his same monotonous, administration, and he still thinks he's the president.
Yeah.
But it turns out this is like a limbo America where it's all the dark history of America goes to live. And you can get trapped in there. And this whole thing happens, and then finally it turns out that Lincoln is the president over there, and he's having a good time. And he does some weird shit too.
Yeah, because JFK thought Constantine was going to be able to help him out of this weird reality or whatever.
Right.
Because simultaneously, he's in. Is this supposed to be New York? Do you know? Yeah, Broadway.
Yes,
okay, so it looks like he's in. What do you call that? Homeless shelter.
Right.
And unfortunately, homeless shelters do have crime and stuff. So I think he was trying to mention that. But one other thing, one reason I did like it, I don't know, I think there was probably some political stuff tied in there, but it kind of went over my head, I'm not gonna lie. But I really like Papa Midnight, and he was reintroduced. So that's the guy, he does like voodoo. This is him.
Right.
So this is another magic user, but he's in the U.S. and I guess he's mostly in New York. But yeah, so he does voodoo and stuff like that. He messes with, from what it looked like he kind of drugged John in the bar. Like he messed with his drink.
Right. And then kind of just sticks him over there with the help of his sister, which he apparently trapped all the way before in order to get the magic.
See, I don't really like, Papa Midnight is kind of messed up as a character, right? But I loved what they did with his sister, where she's like stuck in this weird purgatory thing he put her in as well. And so because she's mad at him, she's going to help him like get out.
Right.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and there's all this thing happen. And it was weird. It was wild. The end of it is like JFK is walking away while his brain leaking out, and he's Lincoln cut off his hand. That was a thing. I'm like, it just all sounds so ridiculous now that I'm saying out loud, but while I was reading it, I'm like, oh my god.
I want to show something only because I think it's important.
Go for it.
I think you see how his eyes are red? That's Lincoln. That's the demon, I think.
Oh, Bethany.
Because originally his eyes aren't red, and kind of the way they talked about it, it wasn't super like detailed,
and it's not very Lincoln-y.
No, but I think the demon is like following him around, and yeah, I think he was trying to ruin that aspect because JFK thought Constantine was going to save him, but he didn't.
Right. Yeah. And then we get John in a black suit. No, never do that. That's a weird thing. Find yourself a suit, John, because that is weird as hell. Look at this. Look at this. I mean, my God, that is not the John Constantine I know.
I'm trying to figure out where this happened, but there's also a really important thing. I had to Google this because I wasn't sure exactly how it played out, but it ties up to what we were just talking about.
Mm.
I just want to make sure I'm not jumping ahead, but I'm pretty sure this just happened. Papa Midnight actually ends up killing himself and jumping off a building.
Yeah, that happened here.
It did happen right there?
Yeah, right. It was the end because the sister comes and suggests him to do that. He's like, "You're gonna go to this place," and then it cuts out, and then people are talking about it. That he did that.
So I did Google it. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but there might be more stuff with them. I'm not really sure, but because I liked his character and I was like, what just happened? Did he die?
Yeah. Okay, we're gonna figure out as it comes.
Yeah.
And then we go. His plane gets detoured, and he's stuck in Dublin. And then he has the friend, Kit's ex-boyfriend, Brendan, I think his name. He has this whole one more drinking banter with that friend, because he's a ghost, but he comes back.
I was gonna ask. So he was dead. He died. I was so confused. I was like, "That's his ghost, right?"
Yeah, me too. I was like, "That better be his ghost, or else it's gonna be weird." But yeah, so then he goes on a banter, like a drinking banter with him. Once again, goes to shows the brotherly relationship that Ennis always puts out in his books. So yeah, I mean, I didn't think too much on it. So yeah, and then that following that is like a back-to-back kind of episode, like issue of friendship, because the next one is based on Chaz, which is because Chaz is still mad at him.
Oh yeah.
And then he's kind of talking to this. He goes to this football match, the real football. Come on, excuse me.
Football. I don't know how you say it, but
match. And then kind of like has this. Everyone's like, "Oh my God, you're a friend with John Constantine. Tell us more about him." And he kind of grudgingly tells the story where John faked his death and he comes back. And it just goes to show that no matter what, Chaz will always accept him. Like,
yeah, because that was pretty dark. But one of the stories, wasn't he trying to help? What he basically brought Chaz along with him while he was trying to like help save these like make these souls that were like were they like in a crack house or something?
Right.
Yeah.
And then and it kind of goes sideways, and he's like, "Yeah, then John just disappeared," and then everyone's like, "What? That's the end of the story?" He's like, "No, he went away, and then he comes back," and they're like, "That's the end of the story? How does it come back?" He's like, "Oh, John never told me."
Yeah. So he's like telling these guys in a pub, and they're like, "What the heck?" It's really crazy.
They're like, "What? No!" And so then it kind of starts. It kind of ends with. This is kind of like, I really love this part of Ennis's writing, because Chaz and him has this whole fallout, right? And then they kind of get like, they make up after like, a drinking banter and stuff. And then Chaz told him like, if you die again next time, no one's gonna show up to your right? And and he's like, yeah. And then Chaz is like, well, I will, and then Constantine like, you'd be diving the frigging hairs, my friend. Like, I thought that was like perfect. That kind of solidifies their friendship so well.
Because he was basically talking about how, I think he was telling the guys at the pub, right, about how they had this whole funeral. All these people showed up thinking John was dead, and then as the preacher, he was like doing the service and trying to wrap everything up. John's just sitting outside of the door smoking.
Everyone's just, how did he come back? He's like, John never told me.
No, we don't know.
So that brings us to the last arc of Ennis's run, the Rakes. Oh my God, there's a lot of preposition in this one. It's called Rakes at the Gates of Hell, and which is pretty much culmination of everything, all the little plot points that Ennis was trying to introduce, all the characters that he introduced. The devil comes back to get his payment, like to like, no, you cannot get away by fooling me. And then it was very tragic, because the two things kind of happen side by side. There's a riot that breaks out because of the white supremacist group that we saw in the previous volume. And then on the side of that, all his friends are pretty much being plucked out by the devil. Like we said before, it was all the character that Ennis introduces, and then he's now taking them back. And Constantine kind of running around and trying to figure out how to solve this problem. But yes, Bethany, what's
just one I think this was kind of a subplot. He has like a new girlfriend kind of, but she's not really talked about very much. But then also he sees his ex-girlfriend. She's like a prostitute and like on drugs and stuff. And so you see him. To me, I thought he was doing the right thing, but the way that the people in the dialogue for it, people were like, "Oh, why are you helping her?" Like they were so mad that he was trying to help get her off drugs.
Right. Yeah. So that was also like a subplot that was happening, but the thing is like that goes really wrong really fast. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that there's this whole thing, like, he tries to hide her away, but her pimp still finds her, even though everyone's telling him, like, no, you need to take her to the hospital. But he's like, no, the pimp will find him. But like, the pimp finds him anyway, and beats her up, rapes her, which was what and then on top of that, all the things that he sets up with Gabriel and his heart and everything, that also doesn't plan out because the devil kind of just clears him off like that, which I thought was the saddest thing ever. That was like the most tragic ending of a character. Like, even though it was like, he was like a smug archangel and stuff, the way he was just like taken out, I was very sad by that.
Yeah. So this is kind of what we were talking about, where he wrapped up a lot of the characters that he introduced. Every
one of them died.
Yeah. So Papa Midnight died. The Gabriel. Also, I was gonna say real quick, Astra. You think that Astra came back to help the devil? The little girl from oh God, what is that called?
Newcastle.
Newcastle. She lost her arm. So this whole time you think like she's really pissed off at John, and she was plotting to help this like devil. But come to find out, it's still his friend. That's Ellie.
Ellie, like, so that's the thing. Like, I kind of saw that coming because I kind of saw that coming because I'm
weird.
I'm like, Ellie has to be involved somewhere, and when she wasn't showing up, I was like, oh, it's gotta be her. Like,
Yeah, and I thought the way that the little girl was acting was kind of weird. So I didn't see that coming, but I thought, okay, something's happening. Like, this doesn't seem like it's really her, but I don't know.
Right. And the thing is, like, it all ends really, really terribly. Like, it doesn't, because that's also another thing, because all this time, Constantine was, like, very, like, on top of his game, nothing can beat him. He was like, but the thing is that finally devil actually got him, at his knee, took all his friends and stuff. And then at the end, he kind of reveals who this person is. Like, the devil himself reveals. He's actually God's consciousness, like, which stops him from making other choices. He just extracted him that part of his brain and then given it a voice, like given it to be a being, which I thought a very interesting take on devil. If you know what I mean? In like occultist or supernatural thing, you don't see that.
Yeah, and also that kind of makes me wonder, because you said there was, like, in Vertigo, there's different, like, there's Lucifer and there, so this guy wasn't actually the devil that we thought he was.
No.
Yeah.
No. And that's the thing, like, because the whole time I was thinking, I'm like, who is this devil? Because Lucifer is the fallen angel, like the one that we know from the Bible, or like, the different Anglos. What are those religions called? Like Judaism, Christianity.
Oh yeah.
Like,
mostly from like traditional Christian.
Right. So it's always Lucifer. Like, it's the angel who rebelled and then was fallen and all that, and he became the keeper of hell. So I'm like, well, if there's Lucifer in this story, then who is this? And then it kind of comes down to, and you're like, oh no, this is serious than we thought. And then Ellie kind of takes care of him, which I thought was like, I wish that this devil was kind of left around. So
really? I mean,
future comebacks, but
it's always possible, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's true. But and the thing is, like, it just felt. I thought that it was a very good ending for Ennis. Like, if this was where Hellblazer ended, I'd be like, oh, that's really great. But we know it didn't. So I was like, oh, I wish that character was around.
Yeah. And so also just wrapping up the last part we were talking about, Ellie stabs the devil and it looks like it's some sort of like holy sword or something. And the devil had given him John Constantine his cancer back. And so she like, cures him. It's kind of gross. She like took out lumps of cancer or something.
Yeah, okay, that was the thing. So I mean, that kind of I was like, okay, what's the point of giving it and you're gonna take it?
Okay.
Yeah, I was so sure Ennis is like, I'm gonna set this up so the next person deal with this.
That sounds hard to like. I'm really curious how the next author's gonna take it because I mean, he wrapped it out pretty definitely like with his characters. So
right, but the thing is that that's what I'm saying. Like when I saw that, oh, I gave you cancer back. I'm like, oh, this is like Ennis is like, this is what I inherited. Oh, here
that was so mean.
That's what I thought that he was doing, but then Ellie's like, "No, I took it back, and this is gonna be that." And then so in the end, he kind of leaves with like his friend that he tried to save but didn't. She's doing okay, and then she kind of gives him a hug, and kind of he says goodbye, and life is gonna go on. One of the things I really loved though is that, and this is I thought that was very good because a friend tells him that if this was movie, you would have saved me. But this is not. This is real life. Yeah. And I thought that was actually pretty interesting. I mean, like, yeah, he's not all powerful. Our real life often is shitty.
Yeah. And there's not always like a happy ending.
So. Right. There's not a happy ending. You can just hope for the best, which I thought that was a very nice way of wrapping it up and, setting him for the next person, which is, who is this? Who is this next person? Paul Jenkins.
Yeah.
So also another Brit, which I didn't know, but I really do enjoy Paul Jenkins' work. I read a lot of his work was in Marvel, which but he's I'm kind of hopeful. Oh, before we get into that, what did you give it a rating wise?
I think I gave it a 4, like a solid 4.
Same, yeah. Exactly the same. Oh, we are on like unison over this. Like, yeah, I think it was very standard 4. I think the first one kind of left a bit of like the first arc with America left a bit of like, sourness in my. I was like, that was a bit much.
I honestly didn't really like. I don't want to say I didn't like it, but the America part, didn't really do anything for me. Like, like I said, I really just liked the Papa Midnight character and his sister. Right. That's really the redeeming quality for me.
Right. So yeah, so next up is going to be Paul Jenkins. I really like his work in most of the ones that I read in Marvel. He did do. I'm hoping it's the same person that I'm not kind of giving a credit to someone. Where is it? Oh, boo! I mean, I can't find it. I think in Human. Oh, it's somewhere up there. But anyway, he did. He also created Sentry, which was like a character I really like. I thought that he did a very good job. No, not Paul Jenkins, the American writer, a painter. I need Paul Jenkins, the comic guy, like comic. Okay, I'm hoping it's that guy. I don't want to misspeak, so just hold on for a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did Hellblazer, a bunch of stuff. Oh, Inhumans, with Jai Lee, which I really like, and it was like one of those things. Inhumans was uncool, and he just took them, and within 12 issues, he made them cool. So he's that guy. Like he can. So I'm kind of looking forward to see how he does it, and he also is the creator of Sentry, Marvel character, which. Once again, a very boring character, but when I read his origin story, I'm like, oh no, he was very cool. What happened? But so that's kind of him, and he has a way of making character powerful in very like you don't realize how powerful they are unless all of a sudden they're super cool. So I'm kind of looking forward to it to see what it is.
Yeah, and even if like not every volume has to be like a 5-star or 4-star for me. So even if it's something that just kind of like helps explain Constantine as a character a little bit more, I'm still excited to see where it goes.
Right, but I'm looking forward to it because the thing is, in everywhere I saw that Ennis's run is supposed to be the best.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like it's a hard act to follow, but we're gonna see how it goes. Mm-hmm. We're gonna pass our judgment So the next one, we're going to be reading until Jamie Delano comes back for one issue.
Okay.
And then Eddie Campbell, he writes 3 issues, and then followed by Paul Jenkins doing the majority, and then Garth Ennis doing 129 to 133. So we're going to be reading up from 84 to 133 for our next part, which I think brings us to volume 12.
And they're smaller volumes, it looks like.
Right. So keep an eye out for that. We're hoping that we can get that sometime in July, but if not, it's probably going to be August. But go join all our social media, the Twitter and Instagram, as you can see in the bottom in the description. And then also you can see our part 1. Unfortunately, this kind of went on a little bit longer than we were hoping, but there was just simply a lot to look forward to. So yeah, I mean, leave us comments and then see what's your thought on Garth Ennis's Hellblazer matches up with ours, or if it doesn't, or just leave us a comment, a constructive comment. Thank you so much for joining me, Bethany, and this was lovely.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
All right. Okay, so we'll see you in next episode, part 3 for Paul Jenkins' run on Hellblazer. Thank you. Bye.